Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and we got the Qsp Gannet. Now, this thing was sent to me by Timbo. Timbo, thank you, man. You're awesome. He's always been a huge supporter of this channel and everything Neeves Knives does. So we really appreciate him just, giving us all the support he has and just sticking with us this whole time, because man, he's been around since the very beginning and we really appreciate him. Now, this Qsp Gannet, it is an affordable knife. So the steel on it is 154 cm, micarta, black micarta, and then the carbon fiber bolster, which this is a liner lock. So it's not necessarily a bolster, more of just like an overlay, but still very cool. And the blade shape is, basically a regular kind of drop point style blade shape. We do have a deep carry clip. We'll get into that in a second. First, let's talk about these ergos. The ergos on this knife are pretty good. You can get up nice and close to that blade for the push cuts, or hold it back. It's a very neutral grip, as you can see. So regardless of how you hold it, it's going to be comfortable, and in use it's very comfortable. It cuts really good. The geometry is pretty decent. I did bring it to work and use it at work. The thickness behind the edge is about between 15 and 18 thousandths behind the edge, and it cuts really good. It's nice and comfortable in the hand during your cuts. Very slicey, and yeah, I was impressed with its cutting performance. The drop point blade does give you a decent amount of belly and and also tip, but it slices very good. So happy with its cutting performance. Now, if we move to the utility cuts, it does have a decent amount of belly, so you do have to lift up quite a bit to get to the tip, but you're right there in that happy medium range where you're still going to get forced down into the cut, especially with the way the handle's designed, where it kind of pushes right into your palm. So you do have a decent amount of leverage for utility cuts. It's not going to be the best utility cutter, but the tip isn't overly thick, so it winds up working out just fine. So for just regular everyday today tasks, it's going to work. It's going to work just fine. No problems with the way the tip or the utility cuts work. It works great. Now, if we go into the action, it is a front flipper. It is pretty compact. I mean, it's not a very large knife, but it's also not a small knife. It's right there in that medium range. Now, in my opinion, there are some good big front flippers out there, but this is a perfect size. And the way they do the jimping is exactly how I like to see it on a front flipper. It's the exact kind of jimping I like to see, and it wraps all the way around the flipper tab. So if you want to go right up here on the top, it works great. If you want to go from the front, it works great. If you want to do like that reach around, it works great. So this is a fantastic front flipping knife, and it's very smooth. As you can see, the liner is easy to get to. You can let it drop down and let it hit your nail. And yeah, the ceramic bearings, because it is on ceramic cage bearings with a ceramic detent, is extremely smooth. And the detent is not overly strong. It's actually a lighter detent, but that's what you want with a front flipper, because with it being too hard, it's not going to be easy to front flip. And if it's too light, you won't get that nice break. So it's actually right there where you want a front flipper's detent. Nicely tuned, very easy to use, very easy to deploy. And yeah, very smooth on the drop. So the action's really good for a front flipper. And like I said, it's very easy. That's the thing. Some front flippers are just okay. This is in the range where it's good. It's a great front flipper. And like I said, the access to the liner is very easy to get to. Even though they did not, I guess they cut this back a little bit for the liner, but not really. But they did cut out this side pretty decent, so no issues getting to the liner. And the detent is, when you unlock it, it's pretty early, So you're always past the detent. Even though you don't have a flipper tab hitting your finger right here, even if you don't like to do the drop all the way and you want to let this part hit your finger, you can do that and it's still past the detent. So getting to the clip. QSP's clips are great. I like QSP's clips. They are a deep, well, in this case, it's a deep carry clip. It does have dome screws though. I'm not a big fan of that. However, it is inset into the micarta and it does work really good. Perfect amount of tension. It hangs on really good and it's smooth in and out of the pocket. So that's the best part, or that's the most important part about the clip, is how it goes in and out of the pocket. And it does. It works great. It is not an expensive clip. It's not a flashy clip. It is, you know, kind of a budget clip, but it works and that's what's important. Now, looking at the fit and finish is done really good. These materials are lined up really good. They're contoured perfectly even. The carbon fiber is really good looking. So is the micarta. Nice textured micarta. It feels like good quality. QSP does a great job with their micarta or wherever they source it from. It does have weight relief cut into the scales. And it has a G10 backspacer. Now, getting into some of the negative things. So one thing is the T6s. I don't like T6s. These are it's very small hardware. I want to see T8s across the board. The next thing I already mentioned, I don't like the dome screws. Even if it doesn't give me issues, I don't want an excuse for issues, which that can lead to. So I'd rather see flat countersunk screws. The next thing is this choil. This choil is, it's just, so when I sharpen this, right, when I start sharpening it, it's going to remove steel. Steel will go away. Well, they didn't give you much steel to remove before the edge is going to be just straight across. And it's very close to that plunge grind. The plunge grind starts here and it ends right here. So, you know, you can kind of see it. Like it's, you know, kind of a shadow. The way the light hits it, you can see. So I would have rather them moved it up and just gave me a full choil. Now, another thing is the grind is off. So if you look at this side, you can see, or you know what, let me just go like this. If you look at this side, look at the edge bevel. Now you can see it's not even on this side, moving all the way up and down the blade, which that doesn't bother me. But if my camera would stop going crazy, but from this side to this side, that's a significant difference. Now that could just be the sharpening bevel. Most likely it's not. Let me try to zoom in. This might work better. Most likely that is not the case. It's most likely the grind. The grind is probably off. And you're just going to have to do the best you can when sharpening it to match it up. But it is what it is. Not that big of a deal. This isn't a very expensive knife. So, you know, the edge bevel thing, whatever. Not that big of a deal. But the choil thing, I'd really prefer that. Especially if I'm going to have to try to match up the bevels. I might have to remove a little bit of steel or lay back one part of the edge. You know, there's just little details that make me want to possibly remove steel, which you're going to anyways if you use your knife. So it's nice to have a good sharpening choil. But, you know, the edge bevel thing not being, it's pretty common, you know, especially in this price range. So I'm not too mad at that, to be honest. I'm making a bigger deal out of it than I really personally care, because if I did sharpen it and they didn't match up evenly, it will still cut just fine. I doubt you will ever notice it in cutting performance, you know, that the edge bevel is smaller on one side than the other. So next thing is, you know, and I mention this every once in a while, you know, the clip, it's that shiny clip. It just doesn't go with this knife. This knife has a really good look to it with the micarta, the carbon fiber, and then bam, you got this budget clip. I don't like that. I think it cheapens the knife, and you know, I just would rather see a better clip. The clip does create a hot spot in my hand. When I'm squeezing it, I can feel that clip quite a bit. I mean, it does poke into my hand. Now I can adjust and, you know, try to make it work, but I am trying to work around a deep carry clip that just happens to land right in the spot where I don't want it in my hand, you know. So it's not that big of a deal. The size of the knife with a deep carry clip, I kind of expect it. You know, it's just kind of the, you know, the nature of a deep carry clip. All right, the next thing I want to say for the negative, and I just want to say I do like the knife. I like the knife. I think it's great, but it does feel like a budget knife, you know, and it is. It's a knife that they took a budget knife and they slapped on some good scales, some good materials, but, and which is cool, you know, for a certain price. But for $82, I think they could have did a little bit more on this. The liners is basically where I'm going with this. Yes, the clip plays a part too, because it's a budget clip, but the liners, they seem like a $20 knife liners. So for $82, I love that they used 154 CM and they used the carbon fiber and micarta, but I just think for this price range, they could have did something better with the liners. The liners are a budget knife liners. They're liners from a budget knife, and you can feel it. You can see it. You know, it's even in the operation of the knife and the acoustics, just little details. Now, I like the action. I think it's great, but something with the liners, you know, whether it's because they're shiny, maybe they're not finished correctly, maybe it's the thickness, it's probably a bunch of little details, but you can really feel that it's a budget knife with micarta and carbon fiber slapped on it. Now, the fit and finish is great on it, but, and then they added this G10 backspacer, not that big of a deal, but why not just put the micarta backspacer on there to really match it up? That kind of cheapened it down too. Maybe, you know, it did help bring the cost down, but, you know, not a lot of bad here. You know, this thing is pretty cool. This jimping, you know, it's not very useful when it's open, but you don't really need any jimping. It is nice and slicey, and, you know, they are bringing good quality to the market, and I like 154 CM. Now, 154 CM, from my personal experience, doesn't like a polish. It likes more of a mid-range grit. So when you sharpen 154 CM, you're probably going to want to keep it around 600 to 1,000 grit. Possibly 1,200 grit, just kind of depends on the heat treat. I personally would keep it right around 600 grit. In my opinion, 154 CM loves 600 grit. It just seems to lose its bite as you bring it up into polish. CPM 154, even worse. So 154 CM, in my opinion, does take a polish just a little bit better than CPM 154, but it's still not great. So in my opinion, 600 grit is a great edge for 154. Another thing I like about 154 CM, I did not sharpen this knife, but I did tune it up. And, you know, I've sharpened and tuned up a lot of 154 CM, but 154 CM tunes back up so easily. Like, after using it and it's starting to feel dull, it's very easy to hone that edge right back to razor sharp. And that is something I've always liked about 154 CM. So you can maintain it for quite some time in between sharpenings. And it's very easy to do. And it seems like it likes to be honed and stropped. And, you know, like right there, bam, that thing, whew. That thing brought it right back. Very, very sharp. Yeah. So, you know, it's just so easy to hone and strop back up to a nice crisp edge, you know, after you've used it for, you know, a few days or whatever. But 154 is a well-rounded steel, a great mid-range steel. So it's a great steel for companies to use. Like I said, the one downfall is, and this is my opinion, is that it doesn't really take a great polish. However, you know, for user knives, it's a great steel, you know, especially because you're probably going to want a 600 grit edge on your user. And, you know, it's a great mid-range steel, and I like that we're seeing it for such a great budget. You know, not necessarily even just this knife, but just knives in, you know, in general. So I like 154 CM. I think a lot of people like 154 CM. It's kind of one of them steels, you know, that you're happy to see on your budget knife or, you know, mid-range knife. And, you know, it's pretty cool. Like I said, you know, it has a weird look to it that where it's like it looks high-end and budget at the same time, which it is, you know. They're trying to give you nice materials for the price. So I understand it. I do understand it. And it is a good-looking knife regardless. Has great action, good steel, and a good price. So, you know, for what you're getting. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.